You are listening to Artist Spotlight, a collaborative project between Diverse Artists Network and the Rise Collective. These interviews focus on capturing the rich and diverse talent shaping the arts across Bristol and the Southwest. Welcome to episode 1, Spotlighting Orgena Rose.
Incredibly excited to be sitting down today with Orgena Rose, the award-winning vocalist, composer, director, producer, educator, writer, and presenter. She's just an amazing person doing all sorts of important things. She's been on Oprah, she's been on Broadway, she's been in Carnegie Hall in New York, the Royal Opera House in London, all over Bristol. She's directed more choirs than anyone can count. And she's been a vocal director for Disney. She's written music for movies, charitable organizations, the Marianne Williamson campaign. She's just the most tremendous, joyful person, and it's such a privilege to be speaking to her today. How are you, Gina?
Hello, and thank you so much. I am so excited and happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and really looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've managed to accomplish so much in your career with all sorts
Just a
of
few.
talented artists and major projects. But it wasn't always this way. Yeah. Could you give us just a little snapshot of where you started off and sort of your journey to getting to where you are now?
Yes, yes. So, ironically, my journey started with young Gina being really excited and seeing her big sister perform on stage in a recital, a dance recital, and with music, and saying, "I want to do that," and then singing and really wanting to sing and dance, but then being told by a choir teacher that my voice wasn't good enough. Imagine that. And, and that really could have been crushing. That could have just wiped me out right then, as it does for so many people. But thankfully, I had been given some other messages from my godmother, who told me almost on a daily basis, you can do anything you put your mind to, anything you set your mind to. And I believed her instead of that teacher. And I'm really glad that I made that choice. And so it actually made me decide to set out to prove that teacher wrong. And so I actually was moved to another school the next year, had an amazing choir teacher there who actually taught me how the voice works, how to sing, how to get it stronger. And I got to sing in front of that first teacher exactly 4 years later as the soloist for the entire eastern region of the United States.
Oh, okay.
And I got to watch her mouth drop to the floor in complete shock at this big sound that was coming out of my voice. She couldn't believe it was me. And I had actually been practicing what I was gonna say to her, but actually seeing the shock on her face and her complete, being blown away, I knew I didn't need to say anything. My voice in singing had already said it all. And that was a really, really beautiful, triumphant day. And I was grateful for her because she actually helped me to get on the path that really was right for me. And I went on to college and continued to study the voice and singing, dancing, acting. I actually started dancing first, ironically. And she let me dance and I think she said, "Dancing you're good at, but singing not so much." And what I learned from that was that you just have to learn. It's like driving. No one jumps in a car and is instantly an amazing driver. And most of us don't pop out of the womb singing beautifully. So, a little bit of training, a little bit of learning how the voice works was all that was needed. And so, as part of my own career in performing, I've always been committed to also helping train other singers to know that they can sing also and to get their voices better and bigger and stronger. So, yeah, and then went on to do all the things that you've listed. And I think one of the really exciting, biggest ones that I've done was actually here in England and performing on the Glastonbury pyramid stage ahead of Elton John, Sir Elton
Sir
John,
Elton John with the Windrush Choir,
with
right?
the Windrush Choir, exactly. And that was a real, That was a dream come true that day. Really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the Windrush Choir is just such like an amazing thing.
They are,
You
yes.
know, like especially in Bristol, this is like a city that really connects to culture and community and heritage through music, like
Yes.
especially through music.
Yeah.
How is it for you, sort of being like very directly involved with that? The way people
Oh,
connect to their heritage and
I
culture.
absolutely loved it. I actually found that being, part of the Windrush Reggae Choir, leading them, being their choir director, I felt like I have found family over here, being connected to the community, being so embraced by the community. I felt I felt that I belonged and I felt that I had found home away from home, and it just made me feel absolutely amazing and welcome. And so then having that journey lead to the Glastonbury stage was just I think on that day, we were all just elated, we were just like, this is a dream come true beyond what so many could imagine. And being able to honor the Windrush story in the midst of that, all that those who came here from the Caribbean to help rebuild the UK, rebuild England after the war, and to be able to honor some of those actual, you know, generations who had come from the Windrush on the stage. We brought them with us and took them there. So that was just a real moment. And having the BBC do a kind of mini documentary on us. I mean, really, this is the stuff of what dreams are made of. And it's just been wonderful being a part of that while being here.
Yeah, I mean, it's you definitely get the sense of like home away from home. Like, this is something that
Yes.
joins people.
Yes, yes, especially because I have Caribbean roots of my own in my family, from Barbados and, being a Creole woman. So we have that mixture. And so there was a real connection point for me being a part of the Windrush Reggae Choir.
Of course, I mean, that's amazing, and, you seem to have this, like, really deep connection to Bristol as well. It's not just the Windrush Choir, but, you're with Women's Voice Bristol, and also you direct the Sing Out, the
Sing out
Southwest's
Bristol.
largest LGBTQ+ choir. You
Yes.
seem to have just, like, so much, like, investment in all these communities in Bristol. What was it like, why Bristol? Why did you choose Bristol?
I love that question. The short answer is because it reminds me of home. Now, that'll sound really strange, but first, I actually lived in Bristol, Pennsylvania,
That's crazy.
which is right outside of Philadelphia, which is where so much of my family, we're from there. And so when I got to Bristol, I felt like this is like Philadelphia. This reminds me of home. I felt immediately at home, seriously. And it was just like, oh, yeah, this is like Philadelphia. There's this old city bit. And it also is kind of like the younger sister, if you will, to London, the big, big city. Well, Philadelphia is the same way in terms of, New York is the big, big city. And Philadelphia is kind of its younger sister city. And so there's that same kind of relationship. And so I just instantly felt comfortable and at home here in Bristol. Even though, I first arrived in Bath, which was all very, very different, very posh, yes. And it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. And then after about, a few minutes, you just kind of go, okay, and now what? Right? And so I just found myself continually coming to Bristol, actually being a part of the Sing Out Bristol Choir first as a member. And, and then they had me do some solos with them and so forth, and then becoming their choir director. So it was again like Bristol just embraced me and enveloped me, and I felt instantly a part of. And different community people just reached out once kind of word spread about who I am and what I've done. And same thing, the BBC, the different TV shows here have interviewed myself, and of course with the Windrush Reggae Choir, but also yeah, with Sing Out Bristol, we've been doing lots of performances in the neighborhood, and I just love it. I just absolutely love being a part of these different communities. The Bristol Women's Voice now, the choir, creating a choir with them, and it's continuing. We're going to perform at the International Women's Day.
Right?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, yes, yes. So lots to do, lots to do.
That's great. I mean, doesn't just it's not just that you like sort of embrace community and have it embrace you back, but you also seem to bring like a lot of like social purpose to, especially to your programming, the songs that you choose. Why do you think it's so important to you to sort of like bring this social purpose to the stuff that you do?
Great question. I really love that question. And again, the short answer is something that I haven't shared as much, but it's something that I find myself needing to share more often. And that is actually because it's literally in my name. So my full name is Orgena. And that means empowerment. It was a name from the civil rights movement in the United States and literally was a clarion call for people to gather themselves, gather their power and speak to power, right? Stand up for your rights and stand up for social justice. And, being all of who I am, right? African American, lesbian woman, I'm kind of, got a lot of levels and layers here that speak to people in different ways. And I myself have had to, my goodness, empower myself to be able to do all that I've done. And along on that journey, I've been able to empower others. And that's just a real passion of mine. It's not just about me, it's about all of us. Even when I sing and do concerts, with any choir I've ever led, it's always about getting everyone to sing, getting everyone to recognize, yes, you have a voice. Yes, you can sing. Yes, I'll help you. I will show you. I will share what I know because I know what it's like to be disempowered or have people to, look at you as if you're less than or think that you're less than for whatever reason. And that's absolutely unacceptable to me. That I will not and do not allow that in my world. And I will stand up to it and try to make that change, try to be the change. That's one of my songs, right? Be the change. It's one of my favorite quotes because that is how change is made.
You can't just wait for it.
There is no waiting for it. It will not happen. That's a very passive way to live. And unfortunately, we've seen throughout history that exactly happening. It's one of my favorite quotes of Dr. Martin Luther King. It just takes good people to do nothing for evil to continue. Yeah. So it's deeply a part of literally who I am in my own name to be a part of change, moving things forward, standing up for what's right, social justice, etc.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I just think it's so important that you treat music that way because music is this thing that's supposed to be shared. It's not you don't sing by yourself.
That's right.
And you've carried that forth in like so many different ways, especially with you're educating as well because you're not just a singer, you're a vocal coach and you do singing for well-being workshops.
Yes.
So could you talk just a little bit about like how music can like nourish us in that way and like give us well-being?
Mm. Ah, love this. Yes, this for me is this kind of perfect convergence of music itself, which is a universal language, right? You go anywhere in the world and there's music. People connect to music. People speak the language of music and love it. We feel music, right? There's a wonderful quote: "Music speaks where words fail," right? Or where words fail, music speaks because it touches us on deeper, deeper levels just by itself. But then add the element of singing, our voice. Each of us has our own unique voice. We have our own unique frequency. Now I could get really geeky into that whole world. I won't at the moment, but it's incredibly powerful, and science is just now catching up to what tribes have known for ages. The power of our own voice individually is incredibly powerful in so many ways. We could spend an hour just talking about that. But then add voices together. Oh, we could go back to stories about that and how even in war, during war times, voices singing together, making sound together has sounded like there was just a massive tribe, there was a massive amount of people and actually it wasn't, but But the voices together made it sound like that, such that then the enemy actually backed down, right? So the sound of our voices collectively has incredible powerful power. And when we come together, we realize that we can feel that. We get the goosebumps, we get the chills. Our hearts just open up in amazing ways. Yes, there's this whole other side about health and well being. Again, the science is just now finally acknowledging and seeing and showing how singing together, what it's doing to our heart rates. Yeah, relaxing us, taking out stress. Oh, again, the list would go on and on and all the ways that singing together helps us feel a part of community, know that we belong, gets rid of loneliness, helps us to sleep better. Again, on and on and on. And so I love that aspect of bringing people together, having that sense of community, knowing you belong, knowing your voice, you matter. I've written songs to that very effect that we sing in a number of the groups that I run and different workshops that I have, where the singing for well being is a specific aspect, it's a specific focus, so that songs are actually sung that help you just nurture your own self, your mind, your body, your spirit, and your own soul. And I love that. And then, of course, being able to sing in a way that is empowering. Of course, bringing it always back to that. So, where people feel empowered singing together for a purpose, for a reason. Again, like the International Women's Day, right? That's a group of women who are going to sing for this purpose on that day.
And there's power in that.
There's absolute power in that, right? And those songs stay in your head. They empower you. Those songs will go out now to people who will hear them and be affected by them. There's just the best feeling in the world to look out in a group of people and see them singing your songs, singing the songs you're singing, joining in with you, and crying and laughing and joy and being so full, their hearts being full of joy. It's just the best feeling in the world because you know that you're making a difference right there. And those people will go away and they are changed from that. Yeah. We have throughout history so many examples of that. People can go back. Oh, I remember Woodstock, or actually they say I don't remember Woodstock, but they say if you remember Woodstock, you weren't there. But things like but things like that, that movement, there's so many Lilith fairs, there's so many times throughout history where singing and singing together has absolutely transformed communities.
That's great. I mean, it's really powerful, but obviously singing is just one of the things that you do. I mean, you've been acting a lot. You recently did a performance of it was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks at Peckham Theater, which is a very important story. Everyone needs to know about this,
Goodness, the world should know about that story.
right?
Yes.
But I mean, like with all of these different elements of your practice, what is it for you that sort of like binds them together? Because there's always a strong sense of you in your work, but what do you feel is the sort of connecting thing?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's one that actually I've only recently been able to look back over the body of work of what I've done, especially in theater, and realize there is this common thread that is quite surprising for me because that common thread is history, but history in that it's relevant today. So, like, for example, yes, the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. This is a woman who lived for real and changed the face of the medical industry. Every single one of us who has had a vaccine, who has been able to, benefit from medicine to get healthier, we owe that to Henrietta Lacks because of her cells literally being immortal, literally not dying. The only woman, the only human in history to have been able to say that, who has had that effect. And most of the world doesn't know who she is. So so I'm so passionate about that, but that's history and it's still relevant today. Another example, Ragtime. Doing Ragtime on Broadway. An amazing show. Absolutely, that still should be going on today because it's still relevant today, dealing with racism, dealing with all the isms really, but especially around racism and facing that head on. And it did it in a brilliant way through the music of ragtime, yeah? And before that, one of the first things I did was a national tour of Jelly's Last Jam, which was about the history of Jelly Roll Morton, considered one of the forefathers of jazz music. Yeah, and it went all through the history of jazz through that. So there is this running thread for me of history and its relevance today and how important it is, which is really ironic because I hated history in school. I absolutely hated history. But you know why? Is because I had, unfortunately, not their best teachers, and they just like putting on old films that just put you to sleep basically, and half the class was asleep, and you didn't see the relevance in your life today. It's like, why do I need to know about, this war and that treaty where they broke that one and they broke that one and started a war? Okay, like, so we see that over and over again. What's that to me? What does that mean for my life today? How is that going to help me live any better or know anything different? Like, how is that helping me? They didn't know how to make that connection. And it wasn't until actually, ironically, having to teach a theater history class where I knew I wanted it to be relevant. I wanted it to be interesting for me as a teacher and for, of course, the students. And so we literally brought to life all of these playwrights and their works. And I had the students actually become the playwright and talk about their work and then put on a kind of mini version of it. And so I loved that class, as a teacher. I loved it. And the students absolutely loved it because now they weren't just learning about a person in history and saying, okay, they lived and they died and they did these works. And isn't that nice? Go on to the next. No, now we get to know about who they were as a person and why that was relevant. Why was this work relevant? What they did, why is it relevant today? And so that question, I love that I'm being asked that now because actually a year ago I don't know what I would have said. Isn't that amazing, right? So I love that thing about you get to points in your life and you get to look back and see, wow, you get to connect those dots and you can never do it looking ahead. You always have to look back to connect those dots.
But that's
So,
history, right? It's
yeah.
the living moments that you're in right now,
Mm.
built of everything that came before, your own personal life and everyone that came before you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Which
great.
is why, again, realizing the meaning of my name is literally built in to to all of it. And now I see why I've been chosen and why I chose to do the pieces that I've done is because it's history and it's relevant today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a birthright, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I feel like you have this way of like accessing history in a lot of your work through like embodying these figures that are very important. For instance, you did a song from that show Harriet, the movie Harriet with Cynthia Erivo
Yes.
with the Sing Out group. It's a very moving song. I mean,
Oh my
it's
God, that's powerful.
it's very powerful.
Yes.
But like this idea of like embodying various historical figures is such a good way of like offering history to people, in a very
Yes.
concrete form.
And accessible. It makes it accessible to people because they feel it through the songs, right? They can feel the power of the message in the songs. They get the tingles. They get they're in tears by the end or whatever. So now again, it's not just this far off person who's distant and you feel no connection to them. They seem to have no relevance for your life. Now it's right there. It's in your face. You feel what they felt, what they were going through, and now that helps to shift something in you about how you access your life, how you live your life from day to day. It either uplifts you, it empowers you, it makes you realize you're not alone in the struggles that you're going through. And sometimes that's all you need to know is that you're just not alone going through the struggles that you're encountering. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you have this real talent for like embodying these people. And I think, like, I'm actually quite excited about your show that you have coming up, the Tina Turner show, Tina Turner On. I mean, I think you just have this like knack for embodying these like iconic figures. So could you talk about like what turned you on to Tina?
I have loved Tina Turner for ages. I've absolutely loved her, and I actually had to play her in a role in a musical that I had done many many years ago, and it was just a bit. It was just a small part of the bigger musical. But man, when I got on stage as Tina Turner, the place went crazy, absolutely crazy. And I sang, "What's Love Got to Do with It?" and did a whole, all this whole big number. And seriously, the place went wild, absolutely crazy. And I loved that because she's iconic. She has, oh my goodness, talk about embodying empowerment. Talk about embodying, stepping out in strength and in power to do what you need to do after almost being obliterated, right? After so much trials and tribulations and all of the difficulties that she encountered, to then rise like a phoenix through all of that
More than once.
many times over and become this world figure and this symbol to women that says, "You can do it. Get up, stand up, rise up. You can do it." And, stand with your name and keep going, keep moving forward. Take one step, then the next. You can do it. And it's why women all over the world absolutely love her. And so I had, again, done that show, but I knew I wanted to do something more personal. And I'd had the show, I'd had it ready, and I was just kind of waiting for the moment to actually really step out with it. And I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't know what the catalyst was going to be. And unfortunately, it was her passing that absolutely lit a fire in me to want to embody her, to embody that energy, to bring her fire, her strength, her empowerment out into the world for whoever needed it, right? Whoever needed it. And so that was when literally, I think a week later, I was singing with the choir. We were doing one of her numbers. We were singing one of her numbers, a River Deep Mountain High, and I added it into our next concert because it was just like, oh, we must honor this legend, this icon, and then next thing I know, I think a month later is when I literally put on oh, I don't waste time. Anybody who knows me, I do things quickly. And yeah, I got a venue and produced the show, filled it, and
In a month. That's
people
crazy.
it was a little crazy. It was a little crazy. But it worked, and, because I think that's the point too, is people were in the same space. We loved her, and we hated that she was now no longer with us physically, and we wanted to just keep a hold of her spirit in some way, keep it carrying forward, keep it moving on. And so people just jumped in and then and then I did like a little mini tour. Was off to Glasgow. I had never been to Scotland. I'd always wanted to go, and then I got invited to do the show there, Scotland, and then in London, and then just kind of continued, and then it was like okay, took a break, holidays and all of that. It was something else, but yeah, now going to do it again next month. So
Very exciting.
yes, yes, I love it. Absolutely love her. I mean, A, she's a lot of work because she's Tina.
Full plan.
It's a big production. It's a big thing. But I just love it because it does uplift me, and I know it uplifts every single person who watches. It's a very interactive show that I do. I actually bring people up on stage with me, to join in on some of the dances and shake their thing. So yeah, people love it. People love
That's
it.
amazing. I mean, what I really think is so like important about your work isn't it's not just in the programming, it's not just in what you're saying, it's not just in what you're doing. You also, you've also been quite active in a direct way, supporting like women's rights and
Yes.
young girls, and with your WILU fund, for instance. I think that's really great. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what that is and why you decided to start it?
Yes, Willow, Willow. Okay, I'll try not to get emotional. Willow began because of my own story. So I, like Tina, and unfortunately, so many other women have gone through incredible challenges. Literally, I was actually kidnapped as a child, as a baby. Had pneumonia twice, almost didn't make it. Um, was adopted, went through lots of, places of living and endured, unfortunately, lots of different kinds of abuses in the different places that I lived. And to overcome that and still have a sense of love, of unconditional love, and a sense of understanding what that really feels and looks like and what that is, truly comes from my godparents, Willard and Lucille Evans. And, so that's where Willow comes from. It's Willow, yeah, first 2 letters of their name, which is so interesting because the Gila is the first 2 letters of Relax, right? But, so that's where I created that many years ago to, help other young girls, teens and women who have endured similar things, homelessness, neglect, abuse of all kinds, so that they can have a different life, to basically do for them what my godparents did for me. Because if it wasn't for them, who knows where I would be. My mother was young, really, she was a young teenager herself, and really wasn't up and able to take care of her young child. And so, yeah, and my godfather and his wife literally came and and took me and raised me, but then he passed right after. So now I was the youngest of 7 children, and a lot of mouths to feed for for my mom. And she just really, really struggled and went through lots of things, unfortunately. Became quite alcoholic, and it was just a lot of chaos there. But my godparents, right around the corner, that's where there was just this sense of love and peace and joy and security and safety. I actually thought they were acting when I would go around there because it was so different than where I was. I thought they were, just putting on a nice act and being nice and calm and sweet. And then they'd go and maybe argue and fight after I left. But that wasn't it. It was just who they were. And I am incredibly grateful for them. And so that's where the Willow Foundation came from, the Willow Fund. And so I have a number of charities that I love to give to and work with to help support young girls who have been in that same position.
That's I mean, like, that's really amazing. I'm so glad that you spoke about that, especially
Thank
because
you
it's
for
a
asking.
very personal thing.
Yes, yeah.
Um, yeah, I just think that's really amazing. Just one last thing. I'd like to mention Dan, the Diverse Artist Network, who
Yes.
they're the ones that have brought us here and set us all up
Yes.
with this, and they've been responsible for platforming so many amazing artists like yourself. For instance, things like Diaspora Fest, which you were involved in last summer,
Yes.
and so much more. So the Dan motto is very simple: be seen, be heard, be paid. And it
There it
seems like the
is.
last one is like something that, even very successful artists struggle to be paid. So as an artist,
Yeah.
why do you think it's so important that there's proper funding for the arts?
Ah, we could take a whole other
I know,
day
I know.
for this, but so I'm just going to even break it down even simpler, that artists need to be paid, period. There's no other there's no other profession, and I'm using that word intentionally because it is a profession. We study, right? We got education. We didn't pop out of the womb and just do this. Even if we did, we should still be paid for our work. And so it is a profession that comes with a lot of skill and time and energy and love and passion, just like any other profession. Yes, people are, passionate about what they do, whether it's mechanics, whether it's, doctor, lawyer, whatever it is. No one goes around and saying, will you do this for free? Will you do this for free? Will you do your job for free? And so I had actually started saying, okay, I'll do mine for free when you do yours for free. And I just would love for us to get to this place where we stop asking artists and musicians to do their job for free. Let's just stop that.
Yeah.
because it's silly. Every human being deserves to be paid for their work, period. Yeah. So, and I've been on a bit of a campaign, as you can probably hear in my voice, about that. I have a whole artist wealth initiative that is to help artists be better about making sure they're getting paid. Yes, and changing their mindset and their approaches and honoring their worth and knowing how to communicate that to organizations and individuals and businesses that want to bring them on. Great. We'd love to work with you, but recognizing their value. And this to me is actually the work that
Mm.
needs to happen. It's a two-way street here about the businesses, organizations, et cetera. They need to have a shift in understanding and recognizing the value of artists, which we do because people pay hundreds and maybe even thousands for tickets for concerts for the big ones as if everyone else shouldn't get paid. Silly. Uh, but then also on the other side, it's up to artists to change their mindset and recognize their value and know how to communicate that in a professional way in negotiations and contracts and things of that nature. And this is a whole side that most arts and performance places don't teach this. And so that's why artists don't know how to do it. So I actually have an academy that's about that Artist Wealth Initiative. And this is what I am very passionate about teaching as well to shift this whole conversation. I will never forget. I will never forget this. And it's what really was the catalyst for starting teaching this was my first professional job where I got paid to sing was when I was 13.
Right.
Yes, and it was to sing one song, the national anthem, at a baseball game, right? Exactly. And I was paid, and I'm just gonna say it outright, I was paid $150 to sing one song as I never performed professionally before, and so that really needed to that was like, "Okay, if this is how I start, everything needs to go up from here," right? Because over the years but the thing that oh my goodness, I worked at this one place and certain communities, have just a mindset about what they pay people, what they pay their people, and they wanted to pay me $80 to sing and rehearse for 4 hours and lead a choir
A day's work, right?
for a day's work, $80. Now, I'm going to tell you the other side is they also were paying, and I have to go here because this is the truth of the matter in a lot of situations. They were paying my white male counterpart 500,
Right.
$500. Offered me 80, offered him 500. Now, by this time, I had done all the things you'd heard. I'd already been on Broadway, Carnegie Hall, toured internationally. I'd done all of this stuff, and they wanted to offer me $80 and him 500. And that was a turning point for me. That's when I said enough is enough. No more of this ever. And that's when I started the Artist Wealth transformation. And I said, I'm ending SAD. And SAD was starving artist disorder. And it is a
Too common.
disorder. It is. It's like a pandemic, really. And I've been on a bit of a quest to shift that and change that because it literally needs to be done.
Well, I mean, we're not going to be able to have, I mean, everything is built by artists, right? Like, we're not going to be able to have anything unless we can start valuing artists.
Yeah. I mean, if there was like artist boycott for a day or a week, no art for a week,
It'd be a very boring week.
it would be, right? You know how many businesses would shut down or be begging us back and recognize that.
Yeah, well, that's collective bargaining, right?
Yes,
That's why there needs to be a cultural
the
shift for
collective
artists as
voice
well.
again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
So
thank you so much for talking to us. I mean, it's been really amazing. You're not just, talented, but like knowledgeable. I think you have this like really deep sense of why it's important to make art.
Oh,
And.
absolutely. And one last thing I need to say
Yeah.
is such a big thank you to Dan because they are part of shifting this conversation. They are about changing and helping artists to be paid and to be recognized as the valuable contribution that they are. And one of the things that I love is we're doing this wonderful collaboration, which I have to speak about because it's huge. Is so I wrote the diaspora theme song for that festival last year, and they are now commissioned for it to be fully produced.
That's amazing.
It
That's
is.
awesome.
But what's even more amazing, ready, is the producer that I have brought on to do that is the same producer for, some people you might know like Beyonce, Rihanna, Lady Gaga, Janet Jackson, and Alicia Keys,
Okay.
Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars. A few people you may have heard
Heard
of.
of a couple of those, yeah.
His name is Divine Evans.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
And he is producing the diaspora song that will be and continue to be the theme song for the Diverse Artists Network Diaspora Festival.
That's great. And when is Diverse Artist Network's Diaspora Festival returning?
Next year.
Next year.
So it's,
Okay.
yes,
Of course.
alternating years.
Right.
Yes.
Amazing. So next summer.
So
Oh, that's
next
so
year,
exciting.
tune in to hear the produced by Divine Evans track of Diaspora.
And I've heard you're also starting a podcast as well.
Yes, yes. So that's one of the wonderful things is I have interviewed Divine as the artist, the first artist of this year for our Global Artist Spotlight is the name of our Global Artist Spotlight. And Divine Evans is our first guest of the year. So it's all really wonderful that you're interviewing me for this one and I'm interviewing him. And we're all having this wonderful collaboration, and it's truly global, right? We're connecting as artists around the world, and that's a beautiful thing.
That's really, really special. Special. Thank you so much.
Thank you again and again. Just thank you for having me. I'm truly honored to be your first guest and look forward to hearing all of the wonderful things that you do in the future.
This interview was produced by the Rise Collective in collaboration with the Diverse Artists Network. We'd like to say a big thank you to Julia Benaki from Diverse Artists Network, Charli Graff for interviewing, Aisha Campbell for all the social media work for Rise, Rise's co-founder Marla Axon for all her amazing work behind the scenes and on the day, and Mia Diaz, one of the editors for the Rise Collective that worked on this project. We'd also like to say again a massive thank you to Orgena Rose for taking part in the interview and to the Bristol Old Vic for hosting us on the day. Keep your eyes out for the next episode showcasing the collaborative work between the Rise Collective and the Diverse Artists Network.